mother, the the typical hero in this form of mysticism, warns them that they're going to go into this garden and they're going to see an illusion, right? They're going to see pure marble, but it's going to look like water. And when you see the illusion of the marble, do not say it's water, because you can't be wrong, right?
What is he acknowledging in this moment? Not now on the rooftop. If I wanted to resist the temptation, I could have. The one thing I won't pretend is that I was powerless. I was overcome by desire, absolute kind of desire, and it was strong. It was absolutely strong. But at the end of the day, I could have said no. I could have still found it on the goods. And I want to say sometimes the first step from Shiva, is an ownership of sin, an ownership of mistake. We spend so much time, so much effort to correct why it's everyone else's fault. But the only way to become a true Shiva is to own mistakes in life. As difficult and as painful as it is. Find that says, desire, what's wrong, guy? I got it. I said, as much as I was overwhelmed by desire, if I wanted to stop, then stop. Incredible. First one, right? It says, Kiani Yotzel Nefar Macharim Bisani. It is incredible. So, Ruya Haisa Bachara Basariana David, you should stay gracious. So now let's get closer. And this is the fascinating part of this story. David and Bathsheba were meant for each other. They were Bathsheba. The Gemara says, over here again, they were meant for each other from the beginning of time. Allah, Sheba, I love the mountain. But what ended up happening is they came together through difficulty and pain. Through difficulty and pain. Listen, you can't get it in Shmuel. Yehuda, Haisa, David, Bathsheba, Basna, Allah, Sha'afra, Chada. So over here again, Bathsheba and David were meant for each other. They meant for each other from the beginning of time. But what happened? The relationship began before it was right. So the feeling and liking to. And that's the Bible. So I want to find out, how do you know that David and Bathsheba were meant for each other? How do you know that this union was ultimately blessed by God? How do you know it? Shlomo. Right? And their son was Shlomo. The first child died. That was how the first was David and Bathsheba. And ultimately, again, their son was Shlomo. Shlomo, according to this message, God himself names Shlomo Yedidya, the one who is beloved by God. So that's how we know the union was correct. It was how it came about that was fundamentally flawed. God's job, and like you said, Ubitsani said, "We're going to ask you an answer, okay? We're going to be colorful of them. How many of you know what Russia is this was? That because you don't say that last phrase, colorful of them. If you tell me, I will not read. Like, if you tell it, and there is no blood. So when I'm going to go to Russia, if you're going to be a very so when you come to Sari, so God says, you know, so you know, if they were to tear my flesh, so you know, so no how you've done choices, I would not read. Or God says, I will say humility over this sin for us to be talking about this. I will say humility from the sin of Bathsheba, but literally again, if you could me, I will not come. Right? In other words, that even if they were to cut me, I don't, so humiliation is kind of like, it's like a draining of blood. You know, and Allah, this is wild, You know, and the short shit, I'm still not really something. You know, Allah says, you know, when I'm in this nefesh, right? And we are learning about how that person concerning God and self-death penalties, so they told me, placed in your response of the Omen was, Rabbi, Hapa, Rishis, Ish, Misasa, B'ma. Let's see, I have to understand something. The sin of Bathsheba became public knowledge. Governor was humiliated, and Governor was taunted. He was taunted. So literally again, in the beginning, it's that issue. And if you come in this face with taunted, they all gather, by the way, what is that when you taunted with something with tortures? What's the punishment for that? I'm like, you know, I thought Ish Misasa, the Ish of the Holy. Punishment for one of them is adultery is excommunication. And he has a portion is left to come. But Father, just know, our mountains will be able to love it. They will be able to love it. But someone who embarrasses his friend has no feeling in the world. So they say, Father, and this is what God said, I want to just point out. So that this is all the external elements, right? All of the world, all the hostile neighbors that Israel had. David Hamelech is taunted and humiliated and degraded within his own people. This was the full and the episode of Bathsheba. I read you that. After the Bishas Chayosha David, he would smell so oils. So this is very interesting. Even now, if you're going to see, by the way, there were three different punishments that David received for the sin of Bathsheba. What I did really for the loss of their child, illness, Okay, once a child, firmness and rebellion from within his household. So if Abimelech was sick, the says, when he was sick, he and Shmuel and Sam Otis. He went ahead and he paid his conjugal obligations for all of his wives. Shemar, Yahaki Ban Kasi, Kaskeva Hawaii Kasi, Kibina Asi Arsias. So let's say, so this is quite fascinating. What is this? What is first of all, I find this fascinating is that the United goes ahead and actually discuss it, right? Yeah, happy by fussy, literally again, I cry out the night game, us stuff for light on the fussy, but you know, see ourselves literally again, I say it like that, you know, understanding that we go to reference to relations, So when I say, even when I was sick, I was pain, and obligations of Christ, wasn't what does this mean? Kind of a fallout for the episode with my Shabbat, is that we're going to have our wives. So it's like, I think what as I was over here, is that we're going to figure out how to repair those other relationships. And let's say that again, that sometimes there are things that happen in a marriage that cause irreparable damage, and other times there are things in a marriage that happen that cause a tremendous rift. And it's upon the perpetrator of the negative act to try to go ahead and repair that rift, and to do what they can to mend that problem. So God understands, I did a lot of damage, not just to that shadow, not to her, but to all of my lives, to all of my lives. So as I'm doing this, I'm going to do it, and I'm trying to fix that which we left. And you can laugh. DJ trying to laugh on what is that? They say, this is wild. This is wild. And he asked us to say, my child, God and I wanted to worship idolatry. What is this mission now? And he doubled back on college, that Hashem literally. Very much what is that? Matter of fact, in Hebrew, self-revelation, God created also Fisha Aki. So you can go Adama Arosha. So again, God is a fact to worship idolatry. We'll see why in just a moment. And now I want to push out to be again is closing the story. Is great God said, I don't know David. You only want to the most for Yabon of Isaiah. So push us together. What do you do? You're gonna say king like King David worships idolatry. What's again for this? Hold on. Melech Shekemosi again with the road. Nito Yabon of Isaiah by his conscience of us. This was a snare jumping. The jumping. Part of the fallout, part of the punishment for the sin of Shabbat is Hashem told David to bring the rebellion in your home. That is the rebellion about Shabbat. Showing the example of the episode about Shabbat. So now David refuses to do anything to our Shabbat. He's not going to Israel. He's not going to fulfill our Shabbat. So David thinks he's going to lose rebellion. David feels that if he loses rebellion, it's going to be a tremendous correction. Hashem. As people were questioning Hashem, how can it be that this kind of allowed David to lose this battle against Hashem? So it's like closing thoughts, you know what? I'm going to worship idolatry. People are going to say my idolatry. And then when I lose this battle against Hashem, maybe people understand about because he switched things like idolatry. Nevertheless, was concerned about this about the Ishmael. He was concerned that he wants to outshine or to make it clear Hashem. So instead, he decides that he worship idolatry, become an idolater, and then people will attribute my loss to the fact that I switched over to idolatry. And therefore, again, the sanctity of HaKadosh will be preserved. Overwhelming. You know, it's like, I love that HaKadosh because even this particular for the team, such as humanity. All right, so the Lord says, I'm still this to us. So I'm like, my friend kind of see what's with us, right? So that's like this is the Shalom is the mother, was ruled by the name of Ma'aka. Ma'aka was a princess, the daughter of just like the Rebellion and he passed her what right? So Usha Aki says to David, why did you marry me, Pastor? So I'm going to pass her for a Shalom. You passed her for it. I'm going to lay, Lord Garash, the sleeping. Did you not banish me juxtaposition? So you have to pass her. So like, yeah, we wish to go solo in Lola. Let's say Pastor, each letter is solo in Lola. No, you're allowed to. What comes after the Pastor section? Let's say about it. Let's say, You seem to feel like one of these conversations, like Rabbi Salter. Like, I don't know exactly what the purpose of this was, but you kind of, this was already attacking a couple of decades earlier. There's a crucial act, he seems like, by the way, why did you not in my life to do this? You know, there's any bearing on this. Okay, Aaron, I wish I could say that from worshiping idolatry, but it was the, just understand, there might be one time in history that someone is ready to worship idolatry immense love for Ishmael. The growth to Hashem has gathered Melech Yisrael and went to Hashem. Allah is willing to give everything away for the sake of preserving the honor and dignity of people in Shalom. Overwhelming. That's what I do. That's what I study. You do that. You know, I thought the program was going to see people. But it's not the government of the prepared to. So, you know, it says, the serpent pussy. You can be prepared for a pussy merchant. They will say, well, she comes out of here. But the way the pussy merchants work like this, they never sold in bulk. They never sold in bulk. They only sold in small measures. Why? Because they generate like this. If you sell in small measures, you have to buy more often, and they can increase the price a little bit each time. So they make more money by selling in small measures. That is that online. So now, I've got a household. I'm going to go over there and go, I'm showing you. She owns the other level, so we're going to see the way it works like this. God asks for forgiveness, but he asks for forgiveness like a people has, like a little bit at a time. So the first thing he says, first of all, she owns me lovers. I'm going to show you that. So first level, ask for forgiveness for our accident lovers. First of all, people make mistakes. Shem says, forgive it. Next. And when he starts naturally, there's offerings. Cleanses from the eventual sin. Everyone knows about. Shem says, fine. Speaking of, forgive it. God is even Pasha Pashkafa. Forgive me for my intentional sins. Speaking of, hey, forgive me. Azim Shiruti as Isan Guru Everything Rabbanon, those like Rabbanon. So if you next part, we make it that the rabbis don't focus over me again on my sin. Speaking of, forgive it. In the case of Vashara, probably one last request. So lift up Sifri. Can you please take out the story of Vashara from Rabbi? And if you really just strike it from Rabbi. So let's say, I'm alone, yeah, sure. The first you said, I can't do why? We'll stop over here for a minute. I was like, hey, I was like, tremendous story out of us, great story out of us. Let's actually point out just important to understand. We didn't do a drop of the Gemara. Right? Actually, I didn't do a drop. The passing was yesterday's out. Again, it's okay, because the last on the episode, I drew, is only one side. One side. So that's going to be a catch up the other side. Tremendous, tremendous. All right, folks, say good morning, good morning. Let us begin. To the Hazara Seder is so beautiful, so beautiful. Begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning's here today. Our annual Talmud Torah sponsor, Chosim Mishpacha, dedicating all the Sherman Joshua this year as a Zichus for Besoros Tovos Sha'am Yisrael. Our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Nisan, Habalim, and Ritoa Paul Halak, the celebration of Nisan birthdays of his wife. Kathy and his granddaughter Tikva Esther Halak, our anonymous Talmud Torah sponsor, the Schus of Simchas for all of our children, and for Nisan to be the month of Geula Shlema for Klal Yisrael. And Abram Mishim, the Talmud in memory of Abram's mother, Sarah Reiner Basco, Shua Heschel, Sikron the Bracha. Learning sponsors Paul and Kathy Halak, inspiration of the years like Paul's father, Shmuel Ben Zachariah, and great grandmother Cyril Bas Rekdov. We hope that we inherit all of our Talmud Torah over the Yeshem's Latin Aliyah. Families in Islam, all those who will full Shabbat together, full Holy Israel, as well as Hashem Hashem bring home all of our hostages and our holy soldiers should be successful. B'chol Maaseh Yadayim. Because with that, let us begin. There's a lot to do today, but really a lot to do today. Baruch Hashem. Today's daf is Kuf Zayin 107. We are picking up on 106b, both on the days, and we are picking up. uh, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 lines down from the top. How many Ma'abar Rabbi? Very close to me. How many Ma'abar Rabbi the break? So Ma'abar Rabbi says this time. Two little topics from the church, the Rabbi Zillah Malash. In general, don't spend time mentioning negative things about Israel. Don't do that. Don't do that. You know, I want to say in general, what Chazal was saying is it's not a healthy exercise to try to find fault in people, even in bad people. Just not a good thing. The exception to this rule is Bilam. Why? You know, since the time of the Mishchatas Big Day, the more negative you find about him, go ahead and dash him. I will say that the difference over here is that in itself, there's so much text to support this negative narrative. There's so many other supporting stories to support this negative approach. So it's fascinating. So with Bilam, you can dash as much negativity as you want, but with other shy, even with shy, don't go ahead and spend too much time, espousing or looking into their negative traits. Not a healthy exercise, not a good use of time to find the depth, to find the faults in people. See, Doig, so now we're going to focus a little bit on Doig. Remember, again, Doig had Domi. We've spoken about him extensively, but now we're going to get into his story. Doig was an advisor to Shalom. Just take a step back. Doig's major offense, for which he is essentially lost his own level, and for which he really is, in this list of negative personalities, is David Malach is on the run from Shaul. He goes ahead and he seeks shelter in the city of Nov Yaakon. Now again, Nov has no idea what is going on between David and Shaul. Most of the people don't know what's happening between David and Shaul. So David comes to Nov and he goes ahead and he asks for two things. And the two things, food and weaponry. Nov was a city of Kohanim. Now remember again, Moses and again circle back. The Gemara says, false Yonasan, they're not going ahead and giving him food and sending him away. So he comes to Nov, he asks for food and weaponry. Nov gives it to him, and he tells them, I'm on a secret mission from the king, from Shaul. Nov gives it to him, of course, right? Understand what himself, and then what ends up happening, is Doeg tells Noah, by the way, Doeg tells Shaul, Noah is aiding and abetting your son. Like, he's a fugitive. Shaul wipes out the entire city of Noah. One person escapes, but he goes there and he wipes out the city of Noah. This was the event. This is the event that really almost like sealed the fate of Shaul, sealed the fate of Doeg. And all this is happening. And again, Doeg was doing this really, just he didn't believe it. It was to cement his own power. So we might as well just follow. So now that's Doeg. So Sid Doeg, Sid Doeg. So we can look at this. I'm going to go up and it's really your check across the Doeg. So we get to that power swap. So from the beginning, before Doeg did what he did, we worried a lot about Doeg. We were saying that every in a family, sometimes the parent, every child is different. Sometimes the parent looks at one of his kids and he's especially worried about one of his children because like that child is maybe more susceptible to other influences. That child is more susceptible to other things that may be going on. So this Baruch was worried about Doeg. He always worried about Doeg that was going to go ahead and make the wrong life decisions. But that's Lashon of God, but Doeg. But after unfortunately again Doeg kind of left the fold and really did some really terrible things. Amar Chai Shiyatza said, "Oi, look what he has done." Already right at 6. Hatis Hala Belish Goyala Hakibar. Chesed Kal Kolomon. What is Baruch? What was said to Doeg? What are you doing? You'll give her Torah Ata? Aren't you strong in tolerance? And Doeg was sinning, but he told him to the upper section. What is the matter with you, Doeg? You're better than this. You can do better than this. Aren't you a giver of Torah? Aren't you strong in Torah? No. This hello below. What benefit will you have from all of this negative behavior? Lo chesed kel nachla lachaklayom. Have I not shown you favor? Do I not literally give you favor? The entire list is a tremendous mitzvah. Almost as if I was pained by what Doeg is doing. It's not because you have everything going for you. You have Torah. You have me in your corner. Anything and everything you want in life to have. Why do you say this behavior? Overwhelming. Already somebody said, Rasha Amar Lakim, Malachal Sakatuki. And what the Torah was like, Rasha. Hashem said to Doeg, Rasha, Malachal Sakatuki, Kishatu Magia Leparshas Kiratzim, Parshas Vasaper Lashon Hara, Na'ata Dorishma. This is what I say. When you get up to the section regarding bloodshed, where you the prohibition of bloodshed, where you get up to the section of Lashon Hara, how are you going to interpret those sections? Doeg was a big kafir. So ultimately, again, the Kodesh Baruch Hu says to him, what are you going to do when you get up to these sections of Torah, knowing that your life is not in tension with 50 seconds? It's like, there's a tremendous Musarah. We all have areas of our lives that are not exactly in conformance with Torah. And when we go ahead and we get to the sections in Torah, how exactly do we read through them, right? How exactly do we dash in them? No, we all have this, not knowing that our lives are not exactly in sync with what it is that we're learning. But these are busy I like it. I'm a Rabbi, ain't for us a Shabbat, Allah, the Suffer of it. Though it's Torah, was only from the lips outward. In other words, what was God's Torah? What was God's ultimate issue? He did not internalize his Torah. He didn't realize his Torah was a pursuit. He was tremendous okay? And at the end of the day, it's just never achieved. Rama Yitzchak, right, could say that Kairi Tzadikim Kairi Allah Yitzchak, the you. In the beginning, people feared that's what Yitzchak. In the end, they mocked him. They mocked him. He lost this there. One of these, might have said, El Bala Bayakianu. Such as some actually was because the literally means he swallowed a treasure and then he swallowed it out. He did not go to Shannon Cat. And the God of his darkness. He almost going. Shvachu says, says to Shvachu, please take Doeg's life. Please take his life. Right? Shvachu is like, never know if he's life. Take his life. Amalo, Vel, Bola. So ultimately, again, we are here. So here's the problem. Doeg has a lot of Torah. Doeg has a lot of Torah. I can't kill him now. Wait till he forgets his Torah. Once he forgets his Torah, then I can go ahead and take it. I'm going to follow Torah says, you didn't know Yerushalayim Mikhail. Just take his Torah now. The Shabbos of Mother is so fascinating. It's the Rebbe Shalom to the upper says the Bible can't do anything to Doeg because his Torah protects. Isn't this incredible? Doeg was a murderer. Doeg is not a good guy. Doeg is not a good guy. That's not a good guy. Yes, the Rebbe Shalom says, Torah is so powerful. It says, his Torah is migdal u'matzah. It goes ahead and protects and it saves. It says, I know what I have to do to Doeg. I can't do anything until you forget his Torah. So Shtagat responds, make him forget his Torah. Just think of it as that. The powerful to save us, the powerful to protect us is overwhelming. Earlier, it's like Michael said, Ron El Yukas Torah. I'm not going to talk about it. Nisi Goyla Almadasi. First white man. First of all, he says to David, it's crazy that Hashem is coming with conversation with David. Hashem says to David, let Doeg come into the world to come. Right? Let Doeg, let allow. This means that Hashem is asking God permission to allow Doeg to enter into our life. I'm going to run up. Yam Ayushis Halenas. So letting you approve the brother. Night of Siv. Yaktafa, the Asafah. They're all of us are shacking out of time. So I'm not going to talk about that. Might have been Russia. Mishneh. That's it. Okay. That's what we're going to about. At least let it be done with a change. Let it be that we live for the people in the beginning. Our father, the Kachma, the Safra, and then we have to yo, the Adi, nation in that one. So ultimately, let that is not upstairs to all of them. Which is my son, Baron, so it's a shepherd and son. That is roots be uprooted from the earth forever. God, that's the Lord. Which is so fascinating. God, I know that's filled with this righteous anger towards Doeg. And essentially, God, I'm going to fault. And remember, when I was going to talk about it, because it's about Tshuva. God, I'm going to understand the power of Tshuva. But here, what was the problem? Doeg didn't do it. Doeg didn't do it. Doeg didn't do Tshuva. So again, you can't, listen, and almost you're going to see with this today's sugya, almost anything is forgivable. Like almost any mistake that I make in life, I'm trying to be worked out. As long as I'm willing to engage the process. If I'm unwilling to own my part, if I'm unwilling to accept responsibility, if I'm unwilling to go ahead and take it, that it's my job to fix it, then nothing we can fix it. Actually, if Doeg is only partly in what he did. tragedy is compounded by his unwillingness to do the real personalistic work of fixing. You know what I'm saying? There's no Olam Haba for him. There's no future for him. And there's no teaching of his notion. Right? It's it. Ayi Sofer, Ayi Shofer, Ayi Sofer Sanaklayim. We'll say something really translated means where is the scribe, where is the measurer, where is the one who counts talents, or what is this mean? So the Gemara says, Ayi Sofer, let's just show the Torah. So this is all a reference to Doeg. And what happened to the one who becomes all of the letters in the Torah? Ayi Shokel, Shokel, Kol Kamim from where is Shokel? Where is the one who can literally again is a babe? All of the leading Muslim words are representing Doeg's exceptional scholarship. Ayi Sofer Sanaklayim. Who is the one who goes ahead and who is the one who goes and counts the time? What is that? Sofer, Shlosh Minos Halachos Psikos, the Mikra HaPorah. Doeg knew 300 halachos concerning the floating cow. Correct, Father. What's the floating cow? So, by the way, there's a couple of different interpretations of this. If you look at Rashi, Rashi is on the left-hand column, third line down to the top. Mishnah, you really see that? The Mikra HaPorah Ba'avir, the Nichnos La'eretz on the Shira table, and the Galim becoming law. So this is an interesting halach. We've actually seen this reference. That essentially, don't ask how it happens, but just about that happens. Person goes into another position. There's a general rabbinic prohibition, or there's a general rabbinic law that Eretz Ha'adim, land outside of Eretz Yisrael, has rabbinic heat. That's the halacha. So again, generally, ohel, if you're in a structure, you have to be full 60 for an actual net. That could go ahead and create positions of blackness. What happens if the ohel, the migdal, is floating? Right? So again, it's a theoretical question, but with that, how much is the piece of that? Associated with that particular unique shayla. That was the precision of his knowledge. So Rabbi said, so in fact, Doeg and Achitophel, right? Again, unfortunately, both made terribly wrong decisions. Doeg and Achitophel asked 400 questions in the sugya of the floating tower. So the Gemara says, well, if shit blew fat, they weren't, not one of them is this. They asked such good questions. No one is it because let's say, watch this. I'm a Rabbi said, Rabusa, when we boy, is it such a big deal to ask questions? So I said, this is a profound idea. So essentially, what Rabbi was saying like this: stop to ask questions. But what is even better is to do what? Is to get answers. So let's say, I think the other things that I say, this is a highlight. This is a tremendous line. I'm a Rabbi. Rabusa, when we going, this is such a fabulous to ask questions. Life is filled with questions. Questions are very nice. Feel free to ask them as long as they don't paralyze. A lot of times, like, you ask questions and you can't move forward until you get the answers. And Rabbi says, the success in life, meaning in life, is not found in the questions. Right? Asking a question, meaning in life is found in forward movement. Meaning in life is found in growth. Meaning in life is in the ability to not get answers, but still find the ability to go ahead and move yourself forward. The greatness was also sometimes you think that the guy who asks the precision question, that's not the success. You know what godless is? Godless is two things. The person who asks the questions doesn't get answers, looking moves forward. And the person who doesn't spend time asking questions. Instead, utilizes and marshals his energy to move himself forward. Incredible. Really like that. The shape of Yehuda, this is great. In the years of Rabbi Yehuda, Kula Tanuye Benesikim. So in the years of Rabbi Yehuda, everybody was versed in the center of Nesikim. Right? Like the Papa is over in Nesikim now. The Papa is Marcos, all of those, right? Like turf law, damages, those type of things. So the Anod, Kamaslima, Tuba, this is Rabbi talking. Right? So Rabbi is saying, Rabbi is comparing himself, right, his time to Rabbi Yehuda's time, right? So Rabbi Yehuda, right, in the years of Rabbi Yehuda, pretty much everyone was proficient in one area, specifically again in Ezekiel. So Rabbi said, by us, Va'anon, Chamasina Tuba, we learned that Oksim. It was Oksim is the halachas, not halachas of Turim Tara. So Rabbi is pointing out that his time, right, in his time, he had much greater proficiency in Torah. Rabbi Yehuda's have no proficiency in seeking damages. Rabbi said we not only have proficiency in damages, we also have it again in books in so many areas. If you listen to this, Rabbi says, yeah, if you have a Mati Rabbi Yehuda, if you have a Mati Rabbi Yehuda, you should correct your data. Rabbi was this, you should catch him by paying for money. So yeah, when they get to see us again, we're not going to tell them to the intricacies of the art. But suffice it to say, there's an interesting shadow when it comes to Kumentara if you have a vegetable with a stem. So what's the status of the vegetable vis-a-vis the stem? Or what's the status of the stem vis-a-vis the vegetable in terms of Torah Kala? When these questions would come up in the Yehuda's issue, they would say, Amar Hadiyot to Rabbi Shmuel Kachazim. And we say, wow, these are topics only to be dealt with by great people like Rabbi Shmuel. So you said, what about they do? So he was become Chacham. His knowledge was limited to the area of his seeking. Like when it came to areas of Oktzin, just like you would come to him and say, this is about my favorite, this is for Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel. And I was like, here's the contrast. Rabbi said, by us, we were experts. Yet watch this. Va'anav, Hamashulim Ba'oktim sorry, Mr. Rabbi said, me, I had 13 yeshivas learning Oktzin. Like, Rabbi Yehuda did in the Oktzin, we had 13 yeshivas learning Oktzin. And yet, Rabbi Yehuda Shalach Masayda Asanitra, yet when there was a drought, all Rabbi Yehuda had to do was take off his shoe. All he could do was take off his shoe. Also, the act, Rashi points out, the act of taking off shoes is an act of discomfort, kind of like Avemus, an act of discomfort. So as soon as Yehuda removed his shoe, as a sign of like discomfort, because the drought would begin to rain. Va'ana, Savchino, the lack of the we cry out, and no one listens to us. So listen, this leads Rabbi to a fascinating conclusion. Ella, after the Shabbat will leave out. What do you see from here? What do you see from here? What you see from here at the end of the day is that it's not the amount of scholarship that impresses God, but it's the amount of heart that you put into whatever it is that you do. Rabbi may have had more scholarship, right? The humble Rabbi may have had more knowledge. The kind of people who love himself, who himself had more heart. Whatever you see, because you need to have more heart. So what Rabbi's trying to highlight here is that scholarship is not the metric of success when it comes to spirituality. It's heart, it's effort, it's passion, it's commitment. Those are the things that really very simple reason I say scholarship is often tethered to abilities that you don't choose. Right? There are people process differently, people learn differently, some people absorb information more readily, some people have difficulty doing it, some people focus. That's their program does. So it can't be that success is tethered to scholarship if I don't control all of those factors. So therefore, Rabbi says success in the life of the determined by your heart. What's your commitment? What's your passion? How much are you vested in your relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Am I showing up to that relationship day in and day out? Am I committed even when it's difficult? If I have that, that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu prizes in the realm of spirituality. Absolutely. Yexid, Hashem Yerda, Frame Joshua. Third up, back to the other. Third up, no subishmat, not Habu subishmat. So going on before, never really understood what it was that they were living with. Okay, let's give on it. Is that possible? Let's say, Aye Sofer, Aye Shoker, Aye Sofer Samikolo. Not one of the Habu subishmat. We just said before that Doeg had 300 halachas. So they couldn't get the floating tower. Right? Also wasn't even you know, I don't know, but I have a south of the roof, might always a problem. The powers of us, they knew about Torah. What were they able to get to? I love for the next. I love for the next. The word that was anywhere so it could be the wrong. But they were going to make a lot of nice because the Gemara says, it's saying, is that what the Pasuk says? So Hashem Yireh. The secrets of Hashem are known to only those who fear. In this context, you notice soul means the foundation. It's like Zadik is sold over. The foundation is halacha. When you need Siyata B'Shmaya in order to be able to arrive at exactly what to do, they didn't have to learn things halacha. They didn't have halacha rights because you have Siyata B'Shmaya. That's only with the rest of the ability to oil without they didn't have halacha rights. What's halacha also? Halacha is the ability to take what you learn and to implement it into what you did. What or how you did. What was the mistake of dragging up the Torah? They were great scholars, great Talmud Chachamim, but apparently the problem was they were unable to take what you learned and plug it into Torah. They didn't allow their Torah to shape their lives. And it's like a lot of times we live with this kind of cognitive dissonance where I'm learning, and I'm applying it with tremendous potential, and I know what to do. Sometimes I don't know what to make them our lives. So that's what it means ultimately that I'm learning, but I'm not learning Aliba Belofa, right? I'm not learning halacha on myself because my learning is my learning, but it's not translating into the way that I live. Incredible. Vamos like chocolate from the bowl and we got once we got started Shemaiah. The youngest from the eight was so what we got to Yishma. Last year in Stara, last is gold contracted Saras, Shemaiah. It's Mesa Kozona Mira. Sifasam, it's Sisus. So Gagini on the Habit. Okay. We talked to you ain't being muscular of what? There is no distinction between a sort of muscular and the blood muscle means that the soul is kind of in seclusion. Isolation. Why is in isolation? Where you can see what it tells you. A muklak is a confirmed mitzvah. Ela kriya u'kriya, allowing the spirit to grow. What is body to be told. Shlosh malach and halal was under going. There were three destructive angels who were summoned to go. What did they do? Afal, Shishite Hamudon, one mother was going to forget his name. The Akak Shasarach Mishmaso, one burnt his neshama. The Akak Shakiza Afra Bavati Zinisas and Bavati Motors. And one scattered his ashes and shoes and Bavati Motors. Incredible. Incredible. I'm going to be open. Going back to the Babos, I want to point out how interesting it is, right? What you see. It's fascinating how there's so many different extremes of thought in Chazal. It's hard to so quickly. Remember how we started today's daf with yesterday's daf. Remember again, my great grand said to his son, don't spend too much time thinking about the negative traits of the show, right? And yet, what are we doing? We're talking all about like the negative. So it's just interesting how again, it's almost as if like there's one school of thought that says, okay, we're sure that what if I talk to take care of them? Our job is not to focus on the negativity of the individuals. That's one stream of thought. This stream of thought is no, it's really important to learn about Yeshua. I think we're in the same ways that we like to read about biographies of Gedolim, because we can learn how to live. So then from Yeshua, we also learn what not to do as well. You see that even great people, make catastrophic mistakes that undoes all of their greatness. So the Gemara goes like that. I'm going to go from George Rock and Papa Lowell says that George Rock and Papa did not know each other. They didn't know each other. After all, Doeg did Shaul. Which makes sense. Doeg lived in the days of Shaul, and Papa lived in the days of David. Now, again, that's not such a stretch to say that they would know each other. That's important to recognize. They don't remember again. So Doeg was before David became king. And Papa was David's advisor during the reign of Avshalom. So there's a couple of decades separating them. Even though they could have overlapped, you might say they didn't know each other. So I don't know. Going back to Papa, that's what you made. Furthermore, going back to Papa, did not live past the age of 35. Gemara says, this goes back to yesterday's daf as well. Hanging on Nachman Bais that supports this, it literally means they did not live out up to half of their days. Hanging on Nachman Bais that supports this, Anshe don't remember lo yachutzu min right? Right? And you remember again, the min asked, Rabbi Hanina, like the Hanina, how old was Philip when he died? And Hanina said, I don't know, but he quoted this exact pasuk. Like where the pasuk says, Anshe don't remember lo yachutzu min. Literally again, people who still life. People like deceitful, or yet actually they will not live to half of their lifespan. For Shlosa Shaldoig, well, how you also again, I will say, we operate with the understanding their lifespan is 70 years. So if Chazal say that Russia is not living up to half of his lifespan, that means he's not living to 35. Allah Shloshim Ba'arba, Akitofel Einov Allah Shloshim Shalosh. God lived to 34, Akitofel lived to 33. Don't be open on listen, buddy, I just want to point out something amazing. Just especially when you look through the lens of the scholarship of Georgia people, but they were so young, yet they were outstanding scholars. So again, it's just fascinating. I don't know. To me, these personalities are fascinating because clearly these were people who were capable of such overwhelming greatness and such profound accomplishment. Look the amount of Torah they amassed in such a short amount of time, yet these debilitating life failures, overwhelming. Finally, up on the Tila Kar David in the beginning, David called up until he was ready. And with myself, Karo Chavera, then he called him his friend. With myself, Karo Chavera, and then he called him his student. In other words, Achitophel, his stature was downgraded over time. The Tila Kar Rabbi, the Alta Enosh, Kar Chavera, Umiyodai, and myself, Karo Chavera, according to the Psukim, Asher Yachtov, now together. We'll go ahead and explore the sequence because they said it can now occur. Myself, Karo Chavera, Kamido, Gan Ish Shlomi Asher Batafti Bo. Top of the giant Oka Rahmi Hikdil Alai Asher. I'm going to give you the Amrav. The Olam. We'll say, get ready for this. This is absolutely amazing. So, here we go. This was my little teaser in the chat yesterday. I'm going to give you the Amrav. The Olam. I'll give you other absolutely. A person should never bring themselves to a point of being tested. Don't put yourself in a person should not be tested. We'll say something like, even before we go on with this. What a profound, actually, that's what it's called. Shari David Melech Yisrael, Haiti Asmod Yisrael, David Melech willingly puts himself into a situation of being tested, of testing his spiritual resolve, and he failed. What's the story? Here we go. I'm going to find the Ribbono Shel Olam. The name Ma Omer. Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. The aim Omer Elokei David. So let's say this is Shaila. Everyone says, Moshe, why is it David? We still gather, we still Yaakov. But we don't say, okay, that's not that. This is not God. It's not God. This is, you understand what's happening over there. This is David Melech saying, I want to self-actualize. I want to become the best version of me. I feel that I have the potential to maximize my greatness. How do I get myself to a point where I could, listen, what's the fact? What's the fact of that? The Ribbono Shel Olam is willing to associate his name with those people. That's a big thing. That's a big thing. The prophet really again attaches his name to Adam and says, so God will say, Moshe, how do I get to the level where you will attach your name to me? How does that happen? So God says, well, it's very simple. Listen, David, they were tested, each of them were tested, and they succeeded. So when a yid is able to go and be tested in life and able to overcome these tests and challenges, that's when I associate my name with him. Bring it on. No exact focus. Test me. I'm ready for it. I'm ready. Okay, I got it. It makes total sense. How do you know who I really am until you test my result? So test me. However, Shmuel says, it's very important to understand that the Ocean did not give David this death. David asked for it. You see why it's important to wrong. However, Minsina, David, where we go, so that I'm going to test you. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to give you an advantage that I did not give to Adam and Yitzchak. How so? If you go in the whole Tinu, you either Anak Hamodino Lachad and Misalino Lachad with Divar Erev. So again, Hashem says that I'm going to give you an advantage. What's the advantage? The advantage is the others, I never told them I was testing them before. You, I'm telling you I'm going to test you, and I'm also telling you how I'm going to test you. I'm testing you in a matter of morality. Divar Erev. Now listen, just so you understand what's happening. The fact that the Rebbe is telling David that he's going to test him and telling him how he's going to test him tells us what? The Rebbe doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want to do this. So he's trying to give David as many advantages as possible, but the Rebbe feels like this is a bad idea. So, but again, David, your question for it, I'll give you say in general, kind of a little bit like a parent. A parent wants to keep the hadracha, but at a certain point in time, since the child gets older, even if the parent knows it's a bad idea, right, the parent has to give the child that autonomy. Sure. I'm just saying with David, there's a reason I didn't bring the test. There's a reason I'm not doing this on my own. the question, okay, I can't, it wouldn't be healthy for me to stand in the way of this design if this is something you want to end up on yourself. So try to help you be successful to the best of your ability. I'm telling you, I'm testing you, I'm telling you about Erba. Miyad, listen to this. Vayila Isaiah, there was an evening, Vayakam David Me'amishkavo. David got up from his bed. So listen now, the puzzle doesn't make sense, right? Why doesn't the puzzle make sense? Why is David getting up at night? Right after all, again, you want to see that why is he up at night? So it's discussed. Literally, again, he switched around his schedule, right? His bed schedule from night to day. Rashi points out what the governor must do. David Melech had relations with his wife that day, during the day. Why? Because now David Melech is forewarned. He says, I'm going to be tested with a matter of immorality. So what does he do? He has relations with his wife, hoping that will satisfy that desire, and therefore it doesn't work to try anything else. Okay? It is all no matter how it wasn't wild. And you forgot the halacha. What's the halacha of this? Either Katan Yish Baba. There is a sort of man's body. Right? A reference ultimately again to the Makom Midah. Small part of man's body. The Gemara says to this. Maspion right. If you satiate it, it's always hungry. Or my ego, sabara. But if you starve it, it becomes satiated. What does that mean? I was like, this is incredible. So the way it works with this desire for sexuality is the more you have it, the more you want it. The less you have it, and by the way, what less means is the more moderated it is, the more wanting to be. By the way, this is not unique here. Like this is the Ramban on Kedoshim T. Like what is it about? I said, what does it mean to be holy? Hydration is the Mashamutalaf. Moderation. Moderation. Kedusha is all about moderation. Overindulgence just yields a gluttonous type of life approach, where you just want more and more and more and more. And even if it's permitted gluttony as a mitzvah only gets a person into trouble. Moderation helps a person put appetites in the right way. That's why again, we know that English life again is tremendous almost an importance that is attached to sexuality. But it has to happen in a framework. It is right? And that is a beach resort. There's a big thing that's worked out. But if there's the problem that happens is the appetite gets out of control. By the way, the crazy part is even if the indulgence is done in a permitted way, right? That's talking about some other women. Again, with life, there's an overindulgence, then by definition, things just get out of hand. So interestingly enough, this is fascinating. David Melech tries to hurt the appetite, but yet Chazal seemed to feel that the way that he did it represented a sense of overindulgence, so it backfired. And so not only did it not hurt the appetite, but what? It enhanced it. Overwhelming. What happens? By his heart, bad baseball. So no one else is out. Right? He's on the rooftop. Right? Walking on the rooftop. He sees a woman bathing on the rooftop next to the palace. She was a beautiful woman. Listen, what does this mean? First of all, Bathsheba is bathing on the rooftop. Now, first of all, Bathsheba is just like bathing in public open on the roof, and it's not public on the rooftop. Doesn't make any sense. Somebody says, no. Bathsheba was doing that. Her haifa, she was washing her hair. To see chalsa underneath, like a curtain. Like her chalsa actually it says literally meaning like a dome. Like it's not she had a shower curtain. She had something that was there, right? She had a curtain, right, protecting the privacy. Also, I thought it didn't let it get so again. What happens? The sucker here like a bird. Hasira, what happens? Rabbi took his bow and arrow and he shot at the bird. What happened? Haskell falls up, so he might probably miss the bird, but he hears the curtain. As a result, he saw Bathsheba leaving. So the Gemara says, immediately again, there's so many crazy things about the story. First of all, say, what even shows us about the story? I was thinking about shooting arrows at birds. Like as a kid, like he also took like magnifying glass. You know, like what is that? First of all, Jews don't even do that. Like look at Yehuda. Like Jews hunt for food. Jews don't hunt for sport. You don't shoot arrows at birds. That's what I'm saying. See, listen, you know what the most incredible thing is? I know this is very important. So listen, the Ribono Shel Olam knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing, and so he knows where to give a test, and he knows where not to give a test, and he knows what we can handle, and he knows what we're not yet ready. There are so many crazy parts about this story, and every single part has an unintended negative consequence. So Governor Ralph seeks to satiate that sexual appetite in a forbidden way by being with his wife during the day. The problem is that was maybe a little bit of overindulgence and it backfired. On rooftop. So I'm going to point out to you. Governor Melech, Isaac Brachos. Governor Melech wasted absolutely no time. He wasted no time. You know what's to sin? I woke up so special. Right? So what's happening over here? He's just like strolling. Governor Melech is not a stroller. He's not the guy who just like walks around. That's not no, there's so many things in it. And now shooting an arrow at a bird. Who does that? What's going on over here? So again, we'll see everything this year. So he sees Bathsheba, obviously tremendously aroused by Bathsheba. Vayish Taklan, Vayijosh, Leisha, Vayomer, Hello, Zos, Bathsheba, Bas Aliyah, Eishes, Uriah. This is Bathsheba. The daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah. Vayish Taklan, Valok, and make a house. God sent for her. Had her brought to the palace. Tavo Elav, Vayishkat Imo, the Himis Kadeshes, Mikilasava, Tisha, he has relations with her, right? He sleeps with her. Ultimately, again, the Himis now, let's be truthful here. The Gemara says she wasn't the Nida. She wasn't the Nida. Which, by the way, as I also understand that it's very interesting as well, that was the day, that was the Hakita. She was actually preparing herself for the mikvah, right? That evening, so that's what it means when it says Himis Kadeshes, Mikilasava. I don't get sick. This is what's meant when it says Bachanta Libi Nakana Kalayla Shakani Bakusa Zamot again. So Governor says literally profoundly, you check my heart, right? You check my heart, and ultimately again you are unable to find purity. Zamosi Bal Yavarki. Governor says literally raising Zamosi Bal Yavarki. First of all, Omar Ego Zamoa Nafo Bakume the man the sunny leaf below other human. Only someone listened to me. When I had this conversation with that Kurdish wife, I never asked her questions. Listen, we've all had those moments where we wish someone was there to mess with us. So they were saying, I will not say, that enough regrets very much obviously this entire situation. Very struggle. My Bitsib, Lamnasef, the David Bashem, Fasisi, if Tomulu Nashi, Midi Harfam Sikor. So what's this? Just I want to point out something amazing. So first of all, just to understand, like, the rest of this story. The event with Bathsheba forever changed Rabbi Amalek's life. Like, this was one of those crossroad events that forever changed the trajectory. And we're going to talk over here about the fallout from this episode of Bathsheba. This was, most decisions we make in life have repercussions on the producers, not necessarily for the rest of our lives. Then there are certain times that you cross those lines. People are right and people are left, and your life turns out dramatically different. That night was one of those pivotal moments. One of those tremendously pivotal moments in his life forever changed. How was a constant backtrack, but his life forever changes after that fateful night. Before we go on this life, what it is we have to also understand what's the takeaway message of this. This is how we learn stuff, right? The reason in the Bible, the older are Yavi Adam Ismo between yourself. Don't put yourself in complicated situations. So many times in life, we put ourselves in circumstances that I know are not spiritually correct. Whether it's being around people who I know have a negative effect, like whether it's engaging in activities that I know are not really good for my Neshama. Maybe they're not overtly sinful, but I know they're not good. But I convince myself it's okay. It won't have an effect on me. And that's true until it does. It does. And then I'm like shocked. I get it. Why am I shocked? Why am I shocked? It's like so much of life, right? So much of life is preventative spiritual medicine. Right? It's not being reactive. It's not being reactive. It's being proactive. It's identity, becoming comfortable in situations in life, and not allowing myself to thrust into them to compete. A lot of times I can't choose it. A lot of times I willingly put myself in compromise situations, thinking A, that I'll overcome it, and B, that it won't affect me. And then I succumb to it, and it impacts me, and then I'm shocked. Why am I shocked? Why am I shocked? So much of life is being lost in all of being able to see the impact that certain people, that certain circumstances, that certain events, that certain forms of exposure will have upon me, and don't put myself there to begin with. Avoid it at all costs. Don't put yourself up in the silent because even great people fail when faced with temptation. Overwhelming. Let's go back to it. The second one now. My fixed. Lamatzet Udaber Basham Kasisi. Right, Lamatzet, the doctor, we'll talk more about that later. Basham Kasisi, I couldn't have faith in Hashem. Total Nafshi, really hard and simple. And how could I say to my soul that literally the mountain was moved by it? Listen, by the way, you understand so much. I'm sure that was safer for him was like the die in the sun. Like so much is safer for him that presents events that have to go down his life. You understand these Gemaras in his time. So that was Amr David Devon's Bati Moshe, Matalia also about. Forgive me for this sin. Shalom Yomru Har Shabachan Sipor Navidasa. People shouldn't say that the Har Shabachan, the mountain amongst you, the mountain, that amount is the mountain. Here is the mountain. The mountain was moved by a bull. What's the bull? The bull is in the story of the Satan. Like the mountain was moved by the bull. Garsha reminded Sif, the Falabak Fak Hatasi, the Arad Ina Hasisi, and then kicks back the Dagaha Tiska Bishaka. I've read that with the Hashbata. Ribon Oshola. Galia Diadi Kamecha Dibay Lemafay Yitzray Habikakina. So was it Sira Azuma. Galia says Hashem, you know that if I wanted to overcome my weakness, I could have done it. I could have done it. So I didn't. Ella Amina, the Lemru Abda Zaki Lemaya. But I didn't want to say that the servant bested the master. So I said, okay, thank you. So I said, if I could have overcome it, I would have thought that it wouldn't be true with that God. Right? Because you didn't give me the test, you didn't think I was fasting, and then I would have tested you. Listen, what is this? So I'm being able to tell you the truth, but I don't know if this is what I was going to say something. The great part about David Melech, and the reason David Melech becomes like the concept of how the Melech culture that David Melech owned it. What is he acknowledging in this moment? That night on the rooftop, if I wanted to resist the temptation, I could have. The one thing I won't pretend is that I was powerless. I was overcome by desire, and it was strong, it was absolutely strong. But at the end of the day, I could have said no. I could have started on things. And also sometimes the first step in Shuvah is an ownership of sin, an ownership of mistake. We spend so much time, so much effort deflecting. Why? Because everyone else is fault. But the only way to become a true Baal Shuvah is to own mistakes in life as difficult and as painful as it is. No, sisters, not I got it. I could have said, as much as I was overrun by desire, if I wanted to stop, I could have stopped. Incredible. Josh reminded said, Kiani let's say he summit, which is incredible. They said, Ruya Hisam Achavas at the end of David, Mishesh Gracious. We'll say, no, let's be careful. And this is a fascinating part of this story. David and Bathsheba were meant for each other. They were Bashev. The Gemara says ultimately again, they are meant for each other from the beginning of time. Ella, Sheba, Elad, Benach. But what ended up happening is they came together through difficulty and pain. So ultimately again, Bathsheba and David were meant for each other. They were meant for each other from the beginning of time. And what happened? The relationship began before it was blood. There was like eating unripened food. And let's say, by the way, I want to point out, how do you know that David and Bathsheba were meant for each other? How do you know that this union was ultimately blessed by God? How do you know it? Shlomo. Right? Their son was Shlomo. Their first child dies. That was part of the function of David and Bathsheba. Right? Ultimately, again, their son was Shlomo. Shlomo built the base of Mikdash. God himself named Shlomo Yehudya, the one who is beloved by God. So that's how you know the union was correct. It was how it came about that was fundamentally flawed. Last Rabbi, Mike said, وبالتالي سوف دراسة ناس يعلمون ولا يدع في فرق ولا يدعون أنا لا بين أسباب ما شاء الله incredible. Now, the first focus on that last phrase, hello, for what if you tear me, I will not bleed. Right? If you tear it and there is no blood. When coming up with a drug emotion, because they be a good for that one, you form the study, so God says, you know that if they were to tear my flesh, so you must know how you done these choices. I would not bleed. Or God says, I was so humiliated over this, some of us are going to talk about this. I was so humiliated from the sin of Shava, that literally again, if you prick me, I will not bleed. Right? In other words, that even if they were to cut me, I learned so humiliation is headed by like this, like the draining of blood. Lo od Ella, this is wild. Lo od Ella b'shashem oskim ba'avanis on bacon. Someone says, when I'm in the Spanish, right? And they're learning about halachos concerning death penalties. So they taught me. Poskim b'mishnos and the omen of David. Haba ish this ish. Misaso b'ma. Listen, see, I have to understand something. The sin of Bathsheba became public knowledge. David HaMelech was humiliated, and David HaMelech was taunted. He was taunted. So literally again, in the base medrash, and the Talmidim come in the base medrash with Torah, they say, "Oh, David, by the way, what is that? What is the punishment for someone who is adultery? What's the punishment for that?" Amarti Lohem, Abba ish this ish misasa b'chana, the ish of the punishment for one who commits adultery is strangulation. So he has a portion of what to come. But however, just know, Amalgam today Chavero Berabim, ain't no critical. And someone who embarrasses his friend has no feeling in the world. So let's say, brother, and this is what David said, I want to just point out. In addition to all the external enemies, right, all of the wars, all the hostile neighbors that Israel had, David HaMelech is taunted and humiliated and degraded within his own kingdom. This was the fall from the episode of Bathsheba. I'm ready to go around. I feel the Bishas Kayoshal David, Kib Shmones Ve'onos. So this is very interesting. Even now, we're going to see, by the way, there are three different punishments that David received for the sin of Bathsheba. We may write really four. The loss of their child, illness, illness, and rebellion from the king's custody. So when David HaMelech was sick, the Gemara says, when he was sick, he and Shmona Asar illness. He went ahead and he maintained his conjugal obligations to all of his wives. Shemar, Yagati Banfasi, Esrabacha Laila Mikasi, Idimasi Arsi. So this is quite fascinating. What is this? What is, first of all, by the way, it's fascinating is how the Gemara goes ahead and dashes this puzzle, right? Yagati Banfasi, literally again, I cried out in my pain, Esrabacha Laila Mikasi, Idimasi Arsi. So literally again, I soiled my bed. The Gemara's understanding over here is a reference to relations. I want to say, even when I was sick, pain, my obligation, I related to that. I want to say, what is this? Part of the thing here with Bathsheba is when I had otherwise. So I think that the God was over here, and God will know how to figure out how to handle those other relationships. I will say that again, that sometimes there are things that happen in the people would attribute my loss to the fact that I switched over to idolatry. And therefore, again, the sanctity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be preserved. Overwhelming. I will say, a love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, willingness to take it to the team. It's such a dramatic way. All right, so the Gemara says, listen to this. So Amar, my time kind of sivas nifastar. So let's say this is incredible. So Avshalom's mother was a woman by the name of Ma'ach. Ma'ach was a princess who David war guy. So Usha actually says to David, why did you marry your Yifastar? So I'm gonna Yifastar for a Shaya. Yifastar permitted. Amar lay, no galash sneaking. Did you not dash in the juxtaposition? So we're gonna have Yifastar what does that say? Samach lay, Kia Ish ben Solar Umora. I know say Yifastar. Ish ben Solar Umora. You're allowed to. What comes right after the Yifastar section? And so am I. I was like, I want to tell you. This seems to be like one of these conversations that's like rubbing salt in the wound. Like, I don't know exactly what the purpose of this was. This was already happening a couple of decades earlier. But the Kusha actually saying that, by the way, didn't marry off. Of course, there's any bearing on the story. Anyway, Kusha actually saves David from worshipping idolatry, but this was just understand, it might be the one time in history that someone was ready to worship idolatry had an immense love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. David thought that if he was to have Shalom, as David Melech Israel, that would have been a Kol Hashem. David was willing to give everything away for the sake of preserving the honor and dignity of the Rebbe. Overwhelming. Let's go like that. Now show you the story. Bira. Lamar David Dom, that's what it says. What's it that I be compared to? So the Gemara says the Sofer Kusi. It could be compared to a Kusi merchant. I will say, it actually comes out of here. But the way Kusi merchants work like this, they never sold in bulk. They only sold in small measures. Why? Because their cheshbon was like this. If you sell in small measures, you have to buy more often, and they decrease the price a little bit each time. So they make more money by selling in small measures. That was David Amelech. So I'm household. Amar David there was right. Shkios Mevin. I will say we're going to see the way it works like this. David asks for forgiveness, but he asks for forgiveness like an interest, like a little bit of it. So the first thing he says, Shkios Miyavin. I want to shut it up. So first David asks for forgiveness for our accidental errors. People make mistakes. Shem says, forgive him. Next, when he starts talking, there's roughness, cleansing from intentional sins that no one knows about. Shem says, fine. Shtikila, forgive him. Forgive me for my intentional sins. Shtikila, okay, forgive him. You should be as the central Lishtel Beirabanon, those type of Rabbanon. So ultimately, again, try to make it that the rabbis go focus ultimately again on my sin. Shtikila, forgive him. Then in case we dash Harav, it's one last request. Shall Yichtov Sifri. Can you please take out the story of Bathsheba from Navi? Can you just strike it from the record? So let's say, Amar Lo, yes. Because that far I can't do. Why? We'll stop over here. That's okay. Tremendous story ahead of us. Tremendous story ahead of us tomorrow. Listen, I just want to point out, just it's important to understand. We didn't do a block of tomorrow. Right? I just want to point out, we did do a block. Okay, granted, half of it was yesterday down. Again, it's okay because the last on the upside hedging is only one side. So that's gonna be catch up there. Let's say. I can't go through another great day, everyone. That's the only problem with the size of this. Which is a shame because some of these people she's never seen. Good morning, good morning. Let us begin our favorite of our sponsors. This way, we can take our annual conference sponsor, the top super Johnson Truck, make the promotional adjustment this year. This year, wish me tremendous positive. Getting a time spent on the life and you teach it as the marriage puppy. This is putting it to Shia. Children, as they listen to the month of the image show up the party slot. And album is showing you the earlier album is nothing. Sarah, Raya, Basio, Shia, Ashley's a play the rapper. Ali the Lawrence Basio, College of the Guy. Rachel Riasa, the most other Schnob and Shafaya, and Cyril Basio, Go. And Steve Velasco, and Anya are all of the rapper. They're saying, me, Yagana, and Aya. We are from Raya. As you will say that, let us begin a tremendous start from Red Gather and which is our Padua. I think the record crowd is really about. I'm absolutely. I'm sorry. That's the brother of the red. Oh, no. So we definitely got arrested. Well, that's what we really, and let's just start the time again. And that's only as a group of couple of minutes. I think it's longer. Get a couple minutes of Kazan to walk around with the reinforcing, reinforcing some of these words we got. Obviously, we are part of the chaos in these people, but stay focused with our minutes. It's incredible and tremendous right now. All those statistics are giving us a little bit more. Again, I want us to say guys, good luck. What it takes. You have to be able to look and say, oh, you took 90 days. We have a lot to do today. We have to go out and that's our song. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I got 11 lines up before it gets wide. Then we go, let's give you like yoga up yesterday's out. We discuss it and say, yeah. About how exactly you're able to express what you saw. You can all explain it essentially. You don't understand the exact moment of the emotion or when it gets okay. You understand that it was good because probably saw during that moment. The way that consequences for body sweat. And then it occurred, and an entire time that Willem was trying to press body sweat, the entire time, this was what we never got angry. So what was happening? You know, it says, that's our foot. The only problem with Willem Yavala, not a close with Papa. There's no Phillips at the bottom, the bottom 41 time. I can't press body sweat because what I'm going to press. There's nothing for me to do. Like I can't press the people. That was in the photo. The colors of it. So Rosen gets angry every day. And how long does the anger of the emotion only last? You know what I'm saying? It's just a few minutes. Yeah, I would say just a minute. Just a moment. A singular moment that the person gets angry at. And again, if you catch that in that moment, then the terrible consequences of what we saw. Shneimai, Kiraga Biapo, Talim Gibson, anybody said a lot of possibilities, so let's just get let's just Kiraga Biapo. It's only a moment, pop up for the start to one possibilities becomes enough, which means that the lady says, I wish you don't feel how you face. Don't feel how you face. You see, don't buy that stuff out there. Don't forget about you. And you can feel that. I yourself literally again suggesting that you it's simply divine wrath on somebody. So again, same idea. I think you know the level. Just speak the word and show the divine wrath passes. See what it says. I get this. unas plazas y hay dos decisiones a nivel nacional. Those was not get angry. So, says the cross shutting on myself in the first few hours of the journey early morning. You could get around perfect time last time. Ultimately, getting ready, evidence of the mistake are totally late. So, says, contract is Entonces usa outra. Usa o chefe da Shankar, is big circle circuit. You Shankar record circle circuit. So how do you get the out today? You let me write the whole so small speed circle, right? In these early hours of the morning, early hours of the morning, so there's no places. So the okay. So it's a start. Never say it. How do you like the have a distribution for the show maybe? What's in here? What's this usually the companies are high tech? What's the high tech? We live in the neighborhood that you're sure that lady. Like I was saying, what is it for me? This guy is incredibly optimistic person. And how the color salad, you can color salad. And just give them the show that lady. Just not how you can help us. So what happens is that so the show that lady had an idea. So not this kind of but also at the college. What is it? Not look, you not down in Shaika. The last chance was really the great idea. But I'm done with this guy. I'm done with this guy. So what do you do when you get it? You get it instead. Tied to your desk. Like you wait until the moment is actually see what the battle what you're playing right. But you know what I'm saying? And that way again you are tapping into that moment of divine romance. And you follow this guy. And also I stuff like that. Obviously, when the sugar lady is going to this list, there's two things that happen. Number one, the guy is a mid, right? So in other words, we're theological, right? That's number one. Number two, obviously, he was exactly what you're sure of the lady to a tremendous amount of difficulty, right? And so the sugar lady is willing to go to these lengths to be able to do this. So it's going to find out again. We're going to be helped by the story, but as I said, it's clear that there's much more that's happening over here. Okay, so the sugar lady is ready to test the guy. Listen to this. Maka Yishaika, you're not going to pray. So what do you again? It's Sunday morning. I went for again. The sugar lady is ready to test the guy. What am I going to is about to come? So watch. Okay, so the sugar lady falls asleep. He falls asleep. Says, nothing shakes up, nothing shakes up, no, you fall asleep. I was trying out of power. So the sugar lady says it's clear. That one of our needs is nothing right away. And the sugar lady says the fact that I fall asleep and so long she's like, you're off, you're off the whole time. It's a reason for that one moment. And then you know, that moment first, he fell asleep. The fact that he fell asleep in that moment, but the sugar lady says, please, is the God. The God doesn't want me to do this. What God wants. Not the approach of God wants. Not what I can say. The psychic warfare, right? The psychic approaching someone, right? The psychic being a vehicle of misfortune for someone is not good. It's what he doesn't want us to go ahead and hurt each other. And even if the other deserves it, somebody's going to express each other, there's what we're going to harm each other. Even if the other, even if Rashi says that if you're not in the psychic should manage, they don't have any rules to manage the shia. It's not good for the psychic to be the vehicle of punishment, and it's not good for someone to be punished because of the psychic. Incredible. So like a few of it, I think the really great value in the life. I would say, you know, if you're there, even with the room, I do something that you have to speak to the psychic, especially to the psychic, hopefully if you're going to be the vehicle of divine punishment. You know what I'm saying? We're going to look one about the second law of the Rabbi says. Talk about it. What this means over there. The show something is that that's all I'm going to do. This is what I'm showing you. He's having a funny place. So then the man says here, when the sun rises and you bring the sun worshippers, go ahead and put their hands on your worship the sun. But then it's also gets upset. But like the top of this, what was that here? Right? Put the top of the upset. So what does back go upset? What is it? Because the heaven sees his creations have forgotten about him and instead serve other creations, there's what the picture says. I'm not going to go like that. Of course, it's not happening. Going back in the morning, just has so much. And you want to have hands with the hands inside his back. Okay, so you're not doing that. Now, what's bothering me about the house over here? Hold on, this push me down. It's important. It is important that what you want to do, it's like, there's going to be something that you're not, you're about for that. you just said nothing. So why is it that women themselves think they want to salary is on beat? So we have some tradition that was like, avant ma part, c'est chaud, This is very interesting. There are certain things that disrupt the natural order of life. One of them is love. Love them, they say, what is it? Love makes you do crazy things. Love might disrupt the natural order of human behavior on this right? So you know, it says, I love brother, you can see, they actually have them the most. I can do it in any way I do that. But it's class. Also salaries banking as a guy, like I was multiple guys who actually salaries on that. Because remember, it's the one word here, this is consumed with love for that stuff. Consumed with love for that finished product, which is so really emotional. And love makes you do crazy things. Love disrupts the natural order of things. Okay, furthermore, last disrupts natural order of things. Sinner, you have share with you. So it says, oxytocin, which also disrupts the natural order of things.
Very good.
Sometimes make us do unnatural things. But it's fascinating when like I hear that over here, the intellectuality that I'm loving is beautiful because the salary is on that consumed by his love for Hashem. You know, is so consumed by his hatred and mercy for problems others shall go love to that. In Philip's case, the hatred was all consumed, the even to the point where the enemy is really self-destructive and detrimental. He couldn't stop. He could not stop. Those are nothing from there's one more emotion that we belong to this morning, and that's is also a very strong emotion, and fear also disrupts the natural order of things. How many times in life are we faced with another opportunities to accomplish great things? Sometimes we are so scared of failure, so scared of the possibility of failure, that we simply don't take it. Doesn't make any sense. Everyone can get at times with the possibility of failure. Like everyone can issue this times, but the strong possibility of falling flat on your face and not even going back to where you started, but even being pushed down a couple of steps. If you can't handle the fear of failure, then you can never progress in life. And yet, so many of us kind of just settle for like nothing because we're afraid of what you push ourselves a little bit more. Incredible. What are you going to wrap? The end of the episode, I've done the Mikhail says, see the shlow, beautiful guy. What's the shlow? I was like, at this point, God, it's amazing. Just see something says, where is it that, all seriousness, that you have to come to get up on a really old guy in your head, to be able to learn Torah each and every day, right? And some of us have been doing this for years. Some of us have been doing this, for more than a decade. We just got to talk come from. The whole process comes from a yashkin on the boker. A yashkin on the boker is not really a the yashkin on the boker is early, is different, is why? It's so that way see, because when you love something, how interested you are, like if you think about it, if your child needs to get picked up at the airport, so you want to say to yourself, you know, the flight comes in at 6 a.m., so I leave my house at 4 a.m., you know, this is shit, I love you. Get a cup of coffee, I'm going to be there right now. Like, just hang out a little bit, don't buy your cup. Getting a lot of love to your girlfriends. Oh, yeah, maybe it's okay, I don't expect that. You know, thinking that, like, when you love something, you love the whole of it. It's not like you're any more or less than because you love something. You're literally exhausted. But again, I push myself because I love it. So you really get that part. And that's like, really, what's important to understand that what it is that we do is like a shtickle actor. Shtickle actor. And if you're a little bit more real, that's what it is. If you're a little bit more real, it's to be people that are like see double by 7 o'clock in the evening. Right? You're a little bit. So what's the shot? Where did it come from? Vayashkin Avram Baboker. Avram was the first person to say, when you love a thing, when you love this Torah, get a buddy. Get a buddy. Push yourself to do things that are a little bit back. And I say every single morning, we just understand we are able to demolish following in the footsteps of the Zeta because Papa has called up sexual. Love makes people move crazy. Sometimes you're negative, but for us as humans, always in a positive, incredible. Okay, so you know like the British show is going to go, this is Shema, you know for the reasons, it is Shema, right? Why? Shema says Shema, sorry, Shema is also, Shema is wrong, that's because why? Sometimes in life, what's most important is do things for the right reasons. Even if at the end of the day, sorry, even at the end, you know it's for the wrong reasons. Why? Because over time, you come to do it for the right reason. When you fight now, not doing things for the right reason, over time, they'll come to do it for the right reason. So it's hard to avoid and start to have shit in public as it is. That's what the next thing there is. This is why. Power picking up law. It's not power story. I thought picking up law. Well, how do you do it? Let's try this so take away that. Paul's a bad guy. Paul is a bad guy. And yet, he also what is perverse to the revolutionaries. He wasn't taking it as like idolatry. He was for God. Now, I'm not for the perverse because he wanted God to just God himself. But when I say again, take it over the details, right? At the end of the day, he served the Holy Spirit. The Gemara says, in his service, at the service of Hashem, not for the reasons, but if you're going to reign of witness. Yes, if you're going to reign of government. The government was also not going to reign of Mashiach. So it says, you know, Mashiach comes from fire. How crazy is that? Mashiach comes from fire. He did something holy for all the wrong reasons. We have got 42 for those that are all for the wrong reasons. The prophet says, you know, what kills us? Stress. I'm not going to give you what you want. I'm not trusting God instead. And what God is sometimes the most beautiful results come from the most unholy resources. As long as those unholy resources are so linked to holiness, and sometimes you get the most incredible results for that, even from the most unnoble intentions. And that was the part who takes unholy even if it's Shalom Shema, because ultimately good things happen. Really like it. I'm going to let you guys know. If you see those show everyone, then you know show all of them for a while. Let's say what like I said, the grace was the brother of Eglon. Eglon, right, was the king of Moab, right? And Eglon was the great grandson of Balak. That's wrong, but so I'm going to right? See, you talk about the king of Shlomo. You guys, these are this but it's beautiful. So this is the other company. So that like I said, that's in the next thing here. God will make the name of Shlomo. Now, it sounds like it's saying, God will make the name of Shlomo even greater than your name. And his throne will be even greater than your throne. So we're going to do all of our name is it appropriate to talk to the king this way? See, the next thing is going to be even greater than you. There's a thing you see, be the greatest one of this stuff. So next thing you next is going to teach me. Is that like the I'm going to really cover and then the Rabbi wasn't saying that David Hashem is going to be greater. There's a strong greatness is going to be like yours. Never like your greatness. He wrote them out here to like interpret it this way. To go up in Russian, he just covered my company. Russian all out the real. So it's a like the kid's sister. Help to select the victory of the Devorah and the Barak. So when Devorah praises her, he says, Devorah in Russian, will be blessed. So the Russian like the right of Devorah, in Russian, all out Devorah. From the women, again, here's what's in heart. In Russian, what's in Russian, all Devorah. So the practice is translated as, will be even greater than the women of the tent. Right? Now, who are the women of the tent? None of them. Sarah. Much in the same know that the Lord is telling you, your son's trouble will be almost as great as you. So, short interpretation of that. Other parts of the Rabbi, the thing that he is very practical. Where is it at? Listen to this. Paul had been this kind. What's he doing? He had jealous of other people. This is the kind of what does this mean? Paul had this kind of means I am jealous of the success of other people. Which is very important, right? The religion tells us what's happening on top. It is more and natural to be jealous of other people's success. Like someone has more money than you, someone is more successful than you, someone have more career accomplishments than you. I'm jealous. I'm jealous of people who eclipse me. If you know what I'm saying, you get a quick section for this once. You should know the time you go. There are two people you love and jealous of, and two people who you want to be the greater than you. Number one, your son, and number two, retirement. Retirement is stealing what every parent wants. I want my child to be better than me. I want them to be better than me. I want them to open all of my mistakes, to open all of my wrong today, and I want them to be everything that my family. What if every single Rabbi wants? Every single Rabbi wants to tell me the ultimate fear again. He goes ahead and is greater than him, smarter than him, better than him. But also in both of these cases, the students make my son's success was of my success. And my client's success was of my success. So you know what I'm saying? The Gemara says, when God takes me, you know what I'm saying? You already show. So from son, how do you know that father wants to say, yes, we should. That's why I can't thank you for the condition. Rabbi is one time, you cannot be a son. God is Rabbi. Shlomo will be greater than you. He will be greater than you. And that is like, Rabbi. Right? And time you go for a living, you know, that is a relative. We don't say that. Do you actually struggle with the father, right? We don't say that. We just let us say, but I don't think it's a way. That's where you get it from, as you say. And so that ultimately, again, if you know, is a Yusha Israel, not a question of the papers. So, a year what is to be greater or Moshe to Yeshua. Hashem said to Moshe, place your hand singular on Yeshua, and Moshe placed his hands plural on Yeshua. So, and both of these were there and one was leading to be greater than us. Let's go back to the Hashem never defeat them. Let's go back to the Hashem placed his hands in the middle of his mouth, and Moshe on the mouth. The years of the people. So again, so one thing he says, Hashem placed the malach in Bilam's mouth to prevent Bilam from saying or from pressing the way he wants. The other thing he says, he placed the hook in Bilam's mouth to prevent Bilam from talking. The answer is fine. The area of the Rishon says, how do you believe that? Yes, it isn't covered. If you want to know how Bilam walked the first time still, look how he blessed himself. From the blessings, you can see the curses. Outside, the Lord says, this is the big shalom, the big shalom, shalom. You know, the curses is like a Bilam wants us to have no more children. No more children, no more bucket measures. So you know what it says? What did he say? My trouble I have to laugh with. Right? And then what is interesting? Whatever he cursed, whatever the curse was, you could see from the curse what he had inside. You can see from the blessing what he had in mind to curse. So he praises the curse of God. What means he wanted to destroy the measures, but the process of how he said, Etisha, Shnia Ra'amen. Don't let the Shnia bless the family. And you should go exactly this way. You don't get any more pizza than that. Don't let the manager of how he said in there. So the family will tell you, when you only have this family, there shouldn't have any type of vineyards, right? The vineyards are all grapes. So the Lord says, Kedoros Adonai. When you will come and measure, your son literally shouldn't waft. Like that word. Right? She waft. In other words, that your son, you shouldn't have it raised anything. So she shouldn't have it impact on the world. The Lord says, Ba'adim Nita Hashem, and then you know, so you can say, Ba'adim Nita Hashem. When you have Malachim Barakova, the king is Shlomo Stasha, Frozen Adonai. When you have Malachim Barakova, the Shlomo Stasha, these are nine Barakova. Let's two of my such a record for the most, the Malachim Shlomo in control of the nations of the world, is Samuel from Mani Rabbi. Let's see Azam, we said Malachim Shlomo is strong, by Yalam and the Azam Mato. Look at Amos Makusan, Lord Shakir and Maliki, that's Nessim Makusan. Hello, Yahweh. Yahweh, I say this house. Keep on plugging the piano. Put your reputations what you get. And also, here's what's available. As much as you give them, what's his connect with true. They didn't interpret kind of something. But they had some truth here. Here's the thing. Yeah, I words, but there are different ways of time, different ways of time. Words for different concepts, except for one. Except for one. God is saying he's never lost. Assurance and never given. He's never come. He's never given. He's just been.
Abraham.
Giving having assurance and nothing. Actually, now. My apple, I should have kept on the price of calling the apple. Yeah, 8 touch of the apple. For those runners. Ultimately, again, so most of the person at some point you can be central. But the one that there and said, you'll never have fucking measures. You'll never have. You'll never have. You'll never have fucking princess. You'll never have. If you have the entirety of this team, actually, you will never without fucking princess and fucking measures. Absolutely. I got that. I just really do the princess stuff. Like, the record. Yeah, but many things. One that's in this action, one that's in short. In the rest of what years ago was there. Like this progress, the justice that we did, he said the rest of the imagines, and he even against some of us, even though we were independent. So all the other kids came true. But you look at those progress, and you look at the short, but you never have any entirety of this school. Absolutely incredible. That's what I think. You know what it says? I may be trying to find out your phone. You know what it says? Michael said, I don't think so. Give me a Thomas Mishika's soul. So this is a little translated. What does it mean? Essentially, good is given to you by someone who you love and despise are the kisses of the enemy. What does that mean? So we know it's a double college. Actually, when it's this way, gets in the breakfast of beer from Zilla Rasha. What's it this is? So ultimately, again, we follow the post. There is actually one. Remember, when we have to when you see it, just to be able to see it, excellent. And love and then back. Right? He was the one who took the garment carried the 12 pieces, gave you 11 100 pieces, says, you are there, the matter, over. Exactly as I said. When you have the actual Christmas, when it's Christmas, is when you look around, so good with you and the heart of God. So essentially, once you get the conflict first, the people are actually learning, then you drop out of God, and so you can be perfect in our house. So this is an overwhelming demand. Listen to this. Here we go. There you go. Actually, that's the stuff that comes. Actually, when first starts, and again, what's it? First is a strong word. He's the one with you. Okay, we're going to call it a power. Here it comes, guys. We're going to call each other as a lead. As a lead, the power is within the shalom. Lead our channels is right. I shall go there at the night. So if you're not going to little strength by himself, just like a lead is stricken in the water. That's what I wanted to say. So why is it good to get into this world? She's incredible. Love things that I'm going to mind. So first of all, a lead always stands by water. Like these are macro. And a lead regenerates. Really gets what it's always done by water. Regenerates. Stretch out the movement. It has a lot of roots. And I think we call roots shove the whole lot of ball. That's a lot of people do. And we get soft. Because it's soft, all of the wind to the wall could blow up at the stick. And what happens to the root? Anyone that sees it also becomes. So what happens to the root is the root completely blow over. Even when it's sound. But it's never active. It's never the rest is only using also become. And if you hold it, it's right now. Don't think you're going to leave, just squeeze with the wind. So you should bend your head, both I'm not trying to come up. As soon as the wind is finished, what happens to the wind? Stand right back up in place.
Oh, this dude's tight.
This dude's tight. And we call this a cedar tree. So what's the type of the cedar tree? Not I want to say, it's a line, it's supposed to be cedar that moves on the water. Like the shallow root, considering the cedar is a very shallow root system. Very big enough for floods, which is and regenerate. And I feel like you guys have all parts of it as well. It will be done some kind of cedar is a very strong tree. And therefore, all of the
John James until William Jesus.
But once the southern wind goes around and blows against the cedar trees, Russell or Russell Apple. So honestly, I think that all the everything from the cedar tree, the southern wind does have the ability to uproot it and put it on its face. Not only that, it So therefore, again, better to get the place of Asiya Shirei, right, than to get the block of the lessons and those taking over. Think that block of Asiya Shirei is good for everything. If you mean to be successful, this will change the system. Number one, it is more. Watch yourself by water. Water, that's the way water represents. What is Torah? Water is also Chesed. What is Torah? What is Chesed? That's what the person wants to sustain themselves with. There are two things they need to do. To be constantly invited to the life of not just living Torah, but living Torah. Furthermore, you cannot be a person that only exists for yourself. You must become a person who is about Chesed. You must become a person ultimately identity is rooted in a life of giving and doing for the other. Furthermore, also life is filled with risks. Life is filled with circumstances that we don't like and we go for. There are two different things that you can do when you raise unwanted circumstances go against. So number one, you either fall down. You would just say, well, I didn't want this, I didn't plan this, I don't like this, is that not fair? Whatever you want to say, like, you can just give up. You can just give up. When you're happy with where life is going, give up, lay down. Lay down, say, right. You can do that, or you go. You can like this, just leave it here, and then we get money here, and then we get money there, and like circumstances have a way of moving all different kinds of places. And one thing on your actions is, when the winds die down, I'll be okay. Again, this is a tumultuous day, a tumultuous place of life. We are pushed down this way, pushed down that way. Tumultuous circumstances in life often be so good for us on us. But one thing I know, that when it dies down, I will stay with the surely still back. Why? Because I've never been asleep. Because once again, go back to the beginning. As long as I keep myself moving by water, the water of Torah, the water of Chesed, my root system is strong. And if my root system is strong, nothing can know wrong. No set of circumstances, no set of rules, no matter how debilitating they may be, have the ability to uproot me from where I am. Incredible. Incredible. That's the last part of the service. So we have now probably finished videos. It becomes a core.